WFLA-TV News Channel 8 welcomes you to the Florida Aquarium. The Florida Aquarium, something to see.
Good evening, and welcome to a world of water such as no one has ever seen before. I'm Bob Height, and tonight we're going to take you on a tour of your new aquarium. Believe me, it's something to see. From the story of how the dream began, the creation of this aquatic architectural wonder, to the undersea adventure of acquiring the aquarium's enormous collection, your Florida Aquarium awaits.
The basic concept behind the Florida Aquarium is to tell the story of water in Florida, to follow a drop of water from its underground source in the aquifer all the way out to the open sea.
Along the way, you'll see the glory and abundance of all the Florida habitats.
These are real places. They really exist out there in Florida. We each have a responsibility to be a part of protecting the future of those habitats.
While the aquarium aims to entertain, it also hopes to educate, to inspire visitors to help protect Florida's fragile aquatic beauty. And with a flashback to the 1993 tanker accident in Tampa Bay and its aftermath, one understands the Florida Aquarium is much more than another way to attract tourists. So far, it's taken over $84 million and 2 years to build. Our dive team has been collecting marine life down in the Keys for months. And this Friday, hundreds of them are here waiting to greet you for the grand opening. Where did it all begin? Diane Pertler standing by at the Garrison Seaport Terminal with that story.
Just like the water story it illustrates, the Florida Aquarium itself traveled a remarkable journey before ending up here on downtown Tampa's waterfront, a place once known as an area of industry, not inspiration. Tampa's waterfront put the city on the map. Steamships exported cattle, citrus, and phosphate and returned with immigrants. Shipbuilders moved in, further industrializing the port. But commerce shifted, and the downtown wharves fell into disrepair, prompting a fresh look at an old asset. Ironically, the first drop of inspiration trickled far across the bay at the Clearwater Marine Science Center.
We wanted to do more. We really wanted to make a splash.
But nearby residents objected to expansion plans, and the idea almost drowned.
Good things come to those who wait.
Interest from Tampa leaders breathed new life in the project, and it revived on Harbor Island until owners there backed out.
We maximize the views of
the Florida Aquarium finally took form when the Tampa Port Authority tossed it a lifeline, turning over prime real estate fronting Garrison and Ybor channels.
Go to it, man.
The city kept its promise to help finance the deal, and a decrepit warehouse district crumbled, replaced by a new foundation as unwavering as the aquarium vision.
And not how many fish and how many species, but really how well do you communicate the story you're trying to give people by showing them those fish and those plants.
Getting there has stayed on time and on budget, with everyone working on the Florida Aquarium committed to its original concept.
They get a real message about how beautiful the environment of Florida really is, and also how fragile it is.
The Florida Aquarium opens a second wave of commerce on downtown Tampa's waterfront. It's expected to transform this forgotten warehouse district into the city's showcase.
Thank you, Diane. What began as a dream has become a wonderful reality. When we come back, I'll meet you at the Florida Wetlands exhibit. Welcome back. We're atop the coral reef tank, a 500,000 gallons of seawater filled with marine life. This is the area where aquarium divers enter the tank. Many of them the same divers who were collecting these treasures down in the Keys. We went along with them for that wonderful adventure. Working from a base station on Marathon, a team of aquarium scientists and volunteers is hard at work collecting the myriad of Florida marine life necessary to stock the aquarium's huge tanks. Catching fish for food isn't easy, but when you want to bring them back alive and well, it's even harder.
Okay, now let's get our assignments.
Steve Robertson is the aquarium's curator of coral reefs and plans each day's operation like a military mission.
Okay, you're going under here, right? This is Leon. Yeah. Eric, you're going over the top of Leon? Okay.
The team is about to dive in a new location of the reef system. Each diver is given his assignment, and then it's finally time to get down to work. Hey, wait for me, fellas. Down below, part of the team has deployed a net at one end of the outcropping, while other members of the team attempt to drive the fish into it, if not catching them in their own hand nets. Of course, the fish weren't on deck when the plan was being formulated, and not having had any input, often refused to cooperate. Well, at least we finally saw the one that got away. The ones that don't get away are taken to an underwater collection point, a big bait bucket. Looks a lot like a modified garbage can. When full, it's brought to the surface and, with no small effort, hoisted aboard.
We've got a coot in there that doesn't look happy.
But he would if he knew where he was going, though he still has a long way to go to get there. First, the fish are transferred to a big tank aboard the boat. That's a short trip. Then back at the dock, a slightly longer ride in a bucket to big tanks that have been set up beneath the crew's Keys headquarters. Here is where the process really starts to get tricky. No longer using water pumped directly from the sea, the team, not Mother Nature, becomes responsible for maintaining the proper saltwater chemistry. Finally, the most daring and for the fish treacherous part of the trip, the truck ride to Tampa. It's about an 8-hour ride, so the truck has to be a mobile aquarium with generators, pumps, and filters, the whole works. It's a very anxious moment when the splash-proof tops of the truck tanks are opened. From here, it's a race to the roof, and they're still not home. First, they'll spend a few days or even weeks in more tanks that serve as a halfway house. Again, the water quality is carefully monitored. The fish and other creatures are quarantined here to ensure that they're not ill or carrying parasites that might infect the others. It's not until they receive a clean bill of health that they are finally introduced to their wonderful new home. And that was a wonderful moment when it happened for the first time just a few weeks ago. All right, so I put on a few pounds. Stay with us. In a couple of minutes, we'll go diving with some of those fish in their new home. Oh, boy. I think the coral reef exhibit is the crowning glory of this aquarium. When you dive here, it's just like going down in the Keys. Dropping into the aquarium's coral reef tank is a tremendous privilege. A privilege you can share without having to get wet, thanks to a remarkable 43-foot wide, 14-foot tall panoramic window on the reef.
I like the really colorful ones. Like that one. They're beautiful.
They are beautiful, and they're, shall we say, they're interesting. They're graceful, and some are menacing.
No, be careful, there's a shark in there. Well, watch out, here comes a man-eater.
There are no real man-eaters in the coral reef tank. There's a few sand sharks. For sure, there's parrotfish, angelfish, puffers, and rock beauties. Back on the inside, have a look at what the fish see. Kids of all ages have already chosen the coral reef panorama as one of their favorites.
Because they show lots of different kinds of fish, and they show sharks and different colors, and they're like all fluorescent, and they're like interesting to look at.
So far, the divers, we saw them up top when they were getting ready to go in. Now we get down here and we see what they're doing, so it's pretty interesting to see how it all works out.
It looks like it's feeding time. Broccoli, anybody?
After the coral reef exhibit, it is down to the depths of the offshore exhibit. The stars of that show are sharks.
The offshore exhibit is next stop on our tour and one of the most fascinating.
And this is where the sharks and schooling fishes and the deep water groupers, as well as cobia and mackerels will be found.
And that's only the beginning. Tiny creatures that hide in the depths of the sea will also play an important role in the exhibit. Once installed, this joystick, which controls a video camera, will allow you to view their world.
What we open with will be spectacular, and what we grow into will even be more spectacular.
Just a stone's throw away, you find the bays and beaches.
Now you're coming out and looking from as if you were underneath a mangrove cluster and out through the roots into the bay. Most people take for granted, they just see the brown water out there and don't think much about it, so we're going to teach them that there's a lot going on in the bays.
That's where these wet labs come in. Visitors will get a hands-on, close-up introduction to the animals that live here. Next up, the bridge exhibit. Here, an innovative idea comes to life before your eyes. Fish make themselves at home under a bridge, and you'll actually hear traffic whizzing by overhead. And finally, you reach the beach. Shorebirds put on quite a show as they frolic along their man-made shoreline.
The place is virtually done, but that's not the end of the story. Just a magnificent beginning to what is going to be an ongoing, ever-growing waterfront facility.